Hello, Port City kids, families, and parents. Really excited to be with you today. My name is Clay Everett. This is my wife, Courtney Everett, and we're so excited to be with you at the first ever Parent Tip video.
Yes, we are. And as Clay said, my name's Courtney, and we both have the privilege of serving on staff here. Clay works with our college students. He's the pastor for Overflow, and I serve with our middle school and high school students. We have a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah.
And besides working here, we have a lot of fun at home. We have two teenage daughters. They're 14 and 16. And I don't know if you can tell, but we also have one on the way. So there's that happening in our lives as well. A baby boy coming in October.
Yep. And as we're here today, just together, we wanted to share with other parents and families some things that we're learning, still learning,
processing,
and some things that we have learned in regards to parenting, and specifically the things that we're learning as a church on Sundays in this series, Hope Lies Ahead. And so, Courtney, I thought you could start us off with what are the things that you're currently learning and thinking about in regards to parenting that you're kind of pulling from this series that we're in?
Sure. Well, I think one mantle that I would say I feel like the Lord has given me in parenting is to speak into the identity of our daughters, which obviously is a huge part of what we're learning as a church. And I can remember very specifically being encouraged in that from the Lord, that is going to be a primary role for me as their mother. Right. And for me, that looks very different than what I expected it would look like, honestly. When the girls were little, I think I thought my job is to be responsible for them. And that was like the highest value, right? To kind of keep things safe for them. Protect them, nurture them, which all of those things are true.
Sure.
For sure. Absolutely. But with this idea of identity, it was a vision for something more, something about who they're going to become and my role in that. And as I've processed that throughout the years, I have realized that who they're becoming requires failure.
Yeah.
And that's not something that's comfortable for me. I don't think it's comfortable for any of us. We don't like to see our kids fail. Nope. We don't like to see adverse outcomes for our children. It's painful as a parent. Yeah. And I mean, there's been circumstances time and time again in the life of our family where I feel like the Lord has led me into saying, okay, I'm going to have open hands with them and not control the outcomes. I mean, and I can think of specifically meeting with our oldest daughter's preschool teacher. And, she's a first child, which this is apparently a very normal tendency for a first child. But she looked at me, she's the sweetest lady. She was probably 75. And she just said, Courtney, you've got to learn to let Ellie color outside the lines. And I will always remember that. She said she's got to be able to cut a shape out and get it a little wrong and not ball up her paper and throw it away in anger, because I can either have a vision of parenting for things to be perfect and the outcome to be exactly like it should be, or I can have a vision for parenting with who she's becoming is far more important than that square being cut out and it looking like a square and not looking like a triangle. Right? And so those are safe places where we can actually help cultivate and develop our children from a very, very young age. And then we had a huge adventure as a family. Yep. We moved to Italy to be missionaries when our girls were 4 and 6. Yep. And for me personally, that was one of the hardest moments of parenting for me as far as entrusting our girls to the Lord, because they went to Italian school, public school. They were thrown right in. And I can remember that first day of school, taking our oldest to elementary school, and I sat outside the door because she didn't understand anything and was terrified. I was terrified. I think we both sat there and cried the whole day. But what that looked like is me sitting outside the room and crying all day, praying for her in that classroom, knowing that she was having one of the hardest moments of her life, and going, Lord, you are as much in control and see her and know her and can provide for her here in Italy in this moment, in this challenge, as you were in the safe place in kindergarten at College Park Elementary School. So And I would like to say that got easier every single day, but it took a long time for that to become something that even felt remotely comfortable and trusting to the Lord. I would say, Lord, I'm going to trust you with this, and I would want to grab the outcome and sit in the classroom and tell the teachers she needs to go to the bathroom or whatever.
Yeah.
But that was just a real practical way where we both learned, both our daughter and myself, that we could trust God. I remember her specifically learning from Jeremiah that she could trust the Lord. Yeah. She was clinging to, a passage of scripture being strong and courageous, that she could trust the Lord because he was with her. And that was a beautiful way that she developed, how her character developed, how she became, and ultimately how she trusted Jesus, which is so amazing, I think.
Yeah. Well, when we remove the opportunity for them to fail, I think we put pressure on them to be.
Yes.
To get it right then. And then we're removing the opportunity for them to become, as I think is what you're saying.
Absolutely.
The room to grow, the room to develop. It begins in this opportunity to fail, to get it wrong sometimes.
It does. And to teach them how to navigate that. That is one of the most difficult things we do as human beings, is learning how to navigate failure.
Yeah. It makes me think of how our pastor, Mike, talks a lot about process.
Right.
Like we've lost the art of learning just to process. And part of that is to learn when things are hard, to learn when you get it wrong, to be able to process what do I do when everything isn't going my way, which is the reality of the real world, right?
Right.
Yeah. I think the thing that keeps coming to my mind is this idea of trust. I think you even mentioned the word, but just this idea that I think for us, one of the greatest goals we have as parents is to build trust, right? To build trust with our kids. And I know for me, when I was first a dad with Ellie, I thought it was for me getting it right.
Yeah.
Like, I just wanted to be right as a parent.
Yes.
And I quickly found that failure was probably my number one go-to. And like, well, then what do I do with that? And the reality is for us as parents, what we need to do is to build trust with our kids. Because the reality is that they're going to fail.
Yes.
And I think what I'm kind of relearning and thinking about is that when our kids fail, I want them to trust me, because they are going to fail.
Yeah.
And when they're 2 and the failure is a skint knee, that's one thing. But when they're 16 and the failure is something different, it's another thing.
Yeah.
And if our kids don't trust us in their failure or in their mess or in their hurt or pain, they're going to go somewhere else where they think they can trust someone more. And so I think that like what I'm thinking about that was helpful for me, and we're still learning and kind of leaning into, but I think would be helpful for parents, is learning this idea of building trust with your kids. And not just for the sake of them obeying you, but for the sake of relationship.
Yeah.
And I think when it comes to like building trust with our kids, I remember even in Italy as our kids were 4 and 6, I think it looked like just taking interest in them, like the things that they're interested in, because when they're young, what does it look like to build trust? I think it looks like just building the relationship, because the relationship is the basis of trust, and then trust fuels and deepens the relationship over time. And so I think early on with our kids, it was just taking interest in them, not making them the center of the universe, but going, hey, what do you enjoy? And what do you like? And I want to be interested in that. Because now that they're 16 and 14, it sometimes means us taking interest in things that are difficult, that they'd rather us actually not know about or ask about. And I think that requires that I'm interested. I want to know because I want to help. Not I want to know because I want to find you out,
right?
But because I want to help you. And then one of the things that I have personally learned along the way is that idea of like, how do I respond? Because you make fun of me all the time, but my face says a lot. And so when I hear something or my girl shares something or something happens, my face can say, I'm disappointed in you, even if my words don't say it. And so I'm learning along the way to never be shocked by what happens with our kids, to not be shocked by what happens with the college students I work with. Because my initial response is going to tell them if I'm a safe place.
And I would say, Clay, I've seen that journey of being interested in our girls. It didn't start just, as middle school and high schoolers. It started when they would come home from kindergarten and were so excited to show us their artwork, or they were so excited to tell us about what happened on the playground and to listen to their experiences of the day. And I think you start that right away. You don't wait until they can express it perfectly. And I think that's a beautiful opportunity you have, that we will have, just moving forward again.
And I was thinking about the proverb that says to trust in the Lord with all of your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. And for you and me as adults, that's hard, right? And for our kids to learn how to trust God, I think begins with them learning how to trust us. That they can trust a parent. And they can trust them when things are hard, when things don't go right, when they make really, really bad mistakes. And if they can trust us and learn to trust us when they're 2 and 4 and 6, and they can actually trust us when they're 16 and 18, I think that is going to be one of the greatest accomplishments and successes in parenting, is just having that kind of relationship with our kids.
I totally agree. It's a beautiful picture of the heart of the Father with us. And I mean, that's what we want to give our students, what we want to give our children, we want to lead them in. So,
So the reality in this world is that we're all going to fail. We're all going to stumble and struggle. And one, we've got to as parents, leave some room for that, because that's where our kids learn and grow. And then 2, as parents, we've got to build trust so that our kids will come to us. They'll let us into their failure. They'll let us into their struggle so that we can actually help them in those deepest, hardest places in life.
Yeah, for sure.
So for the parents watching and listening, I'd love for us to leave them with maybe just 2 questions to process. And so could you give them a question to kind of consider as we wrap up?
And I think one thing I'd want to say in that is, as a parent, giving space for your child to fail, that seems uncomfortable. And I think that really requires a posture of trust. Where we are trusting God and entrusting God with our children, and with the outcomes in our children's lives. So I think my question would be, where is there space in parenting in your life to trust God with the outcomes of your children, of the circumstances in their lives, small, safe places where they can learn and grow, where you can help them become, and also in turn help them learn to trust both you as a parent and the Lord ultimately. Yeah,
that's really good. And then I think the question for me would just be, what are some ways you can practically build trust with your kids? And obviously, in responding to their failure, those are hard because those are in the moments. I think there's probably some ways that we can be creative outside of those moments to begin building trust. So what are some ways that you can build trust with your kids so that when they fail, they know they can come and talk to you? Yeah. Cool. Well, we hope that this conversation was helpful and these questions are helpful, and that this conversation is just the start of a greater conversation, further conversations with you guys. So I hope this was helpful. First ever parenting tip. Thanks, guys.